8:55 Eastern Daylight Time, and now our name is in the news. Brought to you tonight by the Joint Safety Laser Company. Just time to tell you that today's improved electric blade, made of steel hardened to cut glass, has the sharpest edges ever produced. That's why it gives you the quickest, easiest shave ever. Ask your dealer for Gillette Blue Blade. First day of the German blitzkrieg against the Low Countries seems to have met with only very moderate success. Both Dutch and Belgians are resisting fiercely, and the Belgians have already been reinforced by strong mechanized columns of British and French troops from the Western Front, responding to the call for help sent out by both small nations after they were invaded. The Dutch and Belgian high commands tonight flatly say the invasion has failed. German advance has been greatest where Holland and Belgium meet. They took the Dutch city of Maastricht, swarmed across the projecting tip of Dutch territory, and say they have taken some bridges on the Albert Canal in northern Belgium. Farther south, they claim to have occupied the town of Malmedy, lost to Belgium by the Treaty of Versailles. Attacks on France and Belgium through Luxembourg have been stopped so far at the frontier. The invasion of the Netherlands seems to have been held at the Ijssel River, where the town of Arnhem has resisted German attacks. And many, if not most, of the parachute troops dropped all over Holland before dawn this morning have been mopped up by squads of Dutch machine gunners traveling in fast automobiles. The German claim this morning that the Dutch capital, The Hague, had been captured by troops landed on the beach was not correct. Dutch troops and warships repulsed them. Parachute troops dropped a few miles from Queen Wilhelmina's palace with the apparent intention of seizing the Dutch sovereign. Were stopped, our correspondent in Margaret reported in an earlier broadcast, by Dutch soldiers who fought them off in the tulip fields. Around Amsterdam, too, the parachute invaders seem to have been beaten off, but there is still fierce fighting going on in the streets of Rotterdam, the chief Dutch port. The German invasion was preceded by swarms of air raiders who attacked first, following the president's son in Poland, Dutch and Belgian airfields, and also bombed far and wide over France. More than 20 French cities, ranging from Dunkirk and Calais on the Channel to Lyon in the south, were raided. And while apparently here too, airfields, or in some cases radio transmitters, were the primary objectives, the French government said that more than 50 civilians were killed. Raids on Paris and on the mouth of the Thames seem to have been purely for reconnaissance, but incendiary bombs were dropped on a town in southeastern England. A raid on Brussels early this morning burned several apartment houses and killed civilians. But after a Belgian protest that Brussels was an open town without troops, the Germans promised not to attack it if it remained so. A late dispatch from The Hague says that no attacks seem yet to have occurred in Holland on non-military objectives. This afternoon, however, the Germans claimed that the German city of Freiburg im Breisgau, also an open town, had been bombed and 24 civilians killed. And each side warns of reprisals if the other doesn't stop it. An air raid alarm was reported from Paris about an hour ago, and all over England, people have been warned to be on guard tonight against parachute troops dropping during the blackout. The only bombs dropped on Switzerland appear to have been a mistake, but the Swiss are conducting a general mobilization nonetheless. And just before all this began, the British announced that they had occupied Iceland, so far as we know, without protest, to prevent its seizure by Germany. Winston Churchill has replaced Neville Chamberlain as British Prime Minister and will form a coalition cabinet. His membership has not yet been announced, but Chamberlain will stay in it somewhere. Resigning, Chamberlain said that new and drastic action must be taken to restore confidence. The French Premier Renault took into his cabinet the prominent extreme conservatives Louis Marin and Jean-Yves Barnegaray. Italy is still quiet, and a broadcast on the Rome radio this evening says that it was the blockade more than anything else which prompted Germany to carry the war into new regions where little resistance was expected. This is in flat contradiction of the reasons given by the Nazi leaders for the invasion. Ribbentrop's claim that occupation of the Low Countries, anticipated by only a day, an Allied attack on Germany with Dutch and Belgian consent, and Goebbels' argument that the Dutch and Belgian governments had plotted a revolution in Germany. And that's the news to this moment. 8:55 Eastern Daylight Time, and Columbia and its affiliated stations bring you Elmer Davis and the news. German land forces today made some small gains, but their advance is not yet very impressive. This is a three-dimensional war, however, and their command of the air has enabled them to make plenty of trouble in both Holland and Belgium. Parachute troops were dropped in more than 25 places in the Netherlands today, and Brussels reported that German planes were flying over almost without interruption, distributing parachutists over Belgium. In most cases, these small detachments seem to have been killed or captured. But besides the actual damage they do in the interruption of communication, they compel the detachment of a considerable number of troops to deal with them. Hard fighting apparently goes on in the downtown part of the city. The Dutch hold the Hague, but have had to fight not only terrorists, but Germans and citizens also, who have been firing from households, and this morning made an unsuccessful raid on the police station. Between the plain clothes and the Dutch uniforms used by some of the Germans, it must be hard for the defenders to know just whom to fight. The German radio tonight claims that parachute troops dropped on the Belgian coast have forced their way into the town of Ostend. Nothing has been heard of this from Allied sources. It may be true and maybe not. On land, the Germans have crossed the IJssel River near Arnhem and claimed the capture of that town, though the Dutch dispute this. In northeastern Holland, where Dutch plans never contemplated serious defense, the invaders have reached Groningen. The principal success claimed by the Germans today was the capture of a strategically important Belgian port near Liège, which they say was taken by some new tactics, apparently including air bombing, which proves that modern fortifications can be captured by modern methods. And east of the Moselle, an entire German division made what seems to have been a demonstration rather than an attack on the Maginot Line. The French withdrew from their advanced posts, and against heavy artillery fire, the German attack was not pressed. There were several air raids on Amsterdam with many casualties and bombs dropped on Brussels, which the Germans yesterday promised to let alone. Mostly, however, the air forces on both sides were busy bombing communications. Allied planes raided bridges, railroad junctions, and airfields on the Lower Rhine, and the German attacks on many towns in France were chiefly directed against airfields. Both sides, that is, seem to be sticking for the most part to the attack on military objectives, but of course there are civilian casualties. The French reported 148 civilians killed and more than 300 wounded today, and the Germans report several dozen casualties from the Lower Rhine towns. Both British and French have denied the German story that the open town of Freiburg was bombed yesterday, but German radio announcers are